Good evening. Remote hearings are held in accordance with House Rule 10.01. This rule has been posted online and is linked to in our public meeting notice on the House website. All remote hearings will be recorded and live streamed by House Public Information Services. Members have the contents of their virtual packets available to them, and for the public, these materials have been posted online. Members, if you're looking for all these items in one place, they're attached in the calendar event you have that Ms. Burt sent for today. To get on the list to be recognized by the chair, members using the Zoom interface have the ability to raise their hand via the app. Ms. Burt will place your name on the list to be recognized. Because this hearing is resumed from earlier this morning, members will be marked by their attendance from this morning's meeting. This evening, the committee will be hearing another handful of bills, and we don't have time to waste, so we will get right to it. The order of the bills is reflected on the agenda updated for members this afternoon. We're taking up House File 1530 first, followed by House File 1710, then House File 1997. At that point, we'll pause and hear from MDE on the governor's updated budget recommendations. And then we'll conclude with House File 1081, which we heard informationally in committee last week, but now formally have it in our possession. We'll be laying all these bills over for possible inclusion tonight. On to House File 1530 of Representative Fu leads. Representative Sandsteed, would you like to make a motion to move House File 1530 before the committee to lay it over for possible inclusion in a future omnibus bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move House File 1530 before the committee to be laid over for possible inclusion.
Thank you, Representative Sandsteed. Representative Lee, welcome to the committee. Members, we are looking to lay this bill over by 6:15 or so. Representative Lee,
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Sandsteed, for moving the bill. This is a proposal to add another method for increasing state adult basic education aid by linking ABE funding increases to the K-12 basic revenue funding increases. If the formula allowance per pupil funding for K-12 increases by 2% in a year, then ABE state funding could increase by 2%. This proposal will keep the 10-year average contact hour growth as an alternate method for potentially increasing state ABE funding. This proposal will apply whichever method resulted in the greatest percentage growth in funding while still capping funding growth by no more than 3% annually. And Mr. Chair, I will turn it over to my testifiers to talk about this need. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lee. I have a list of 3 testifiers. First on the list is Karen Walters, ABE Program Coordinator for the Mankato area schools. Ms. Walters, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good evening, Representative Davney and members of the committee. My name is Karen Walters, and I coordinate Mankato Area Adult Basic Education, a consortium comprised of 6 school districts in South Central Minnesota. The proposal we're bringing to your attention today will help us keep up with the demand for ABE services as we move out of the pandemic and into our new normal. It is an exciting and challenging time for education, and ABE is no exception. Due to slowed immigration and very low unemployment, student contact hours have declined statewide for several years prior to the pandemic. And since the pandemic in Mankato, we've experienced an overall 25% decline in enrollment and 50% drop in contact hours. What's difficult about a slow decline is that we can't shrink our expenses. For example, a class size of 25 a few years ago that has now dropped to 16 students still requires the teacher, space, intake, testing, and support services. In addition, ABE now offers job training and adult career pathway programming, which has smaller cohorts and is expensive to offer. When this slight decline in hours happens over years, it results in decreased funding at the same time we are experiencing an increase in salaries and overhead. A small tweak to the ABE funding formula, such as increases that mirror the K-12 system, would keep ABE moving in the right direction. In visiting with colleagues, I do anticipate increased ABE enrollments this fall. The districts and workforce agencies would like GED offered year-round, which means extending summer programming for students who do not finish high school due to the pandemic. Some of our adult learners report that they are waiting to resume their education until we are in person or their children return to school. And at the same time, some adults are thriving in the online environment as barriers such as transportation in rural areas have been alleviated. It will be a great challenge for ABE providers to meet the expectation to offer both remote and in-person learning in the future with our current funding. Please support the proposed changes to the ABE funding so that we can provide the options our learners need in order to improve their English, attain their high school diplomas, enter training, and upskill into better paying jobs. Our future economy depends on everyone working and advancing to higher levels of literacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walters. Next on my agenda is Kaya Bergen, representing IMABE. Ms. Bergen, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hi, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Kaya Bergen. Thank you for having me. And as noted, my support for this proposal comes from my role as an adult basic education and instructor, as well as a member of the adult education advocacy group, IMABE. So as you may know, in ABE, we work with adults at all stages of life, from the new American who is going to school for the first time and learning their ABCs, to the person who's been born in Minnesota and needs to get their GED or complete a job training that lets them get hired or get a promotion. And so, as Karen noted, without adjustments in funding over the years, what we're essentially doing is trying to provide the same services, but without an increase in the funding to do it. And as we transition out of this year, I think that the needs of adult learners are only going to continue to grow as people who lost their jobs seek to re-enter the job market. And also, I think we've digitized to such a degree over the past year that'll impact people's needs as well. So an increase in our funding would help us better meet the needs of those students. And it would also mean that ABE could be a more sustainable job. So that would allow us to diversify our instructions and hopefully attract more teachers of color to the field. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Bergen. Pardon me. Last on my list of testifiers is Renata Rudmanas, ABE supervisor with St. Paul Public Schools.
Yes.
Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. My name is Renata Rudmanas, and I'm the Adult Basic Education Supervisor for St. Paul Public Schools. I testified before this committee 2 years ago about the importance of stable ABE funding to make sure that our programming was able to keep up with growing demands. Little did I know how much we would be asked to grow. In the past year, we've taken our entire program online and now virtually serve over 750 students a week in our ELL, GED, math, college, and job training programs. Our students come to us with a variety of college, career, and community goals. They also come with a long list of barriers. This was true before COVID and is even truer now when technology skills and access stand between many of our students and their success. In many cases, the gap between the skills our students currently have and what they will need for college or a job are wider than ever. As many of us have learned this year, even just helping kids with homework requires a new set of skills. The resource gap has also grown. Some of our students attend online class and complete assignments using only their smartphones. Others share a device with their children. And we've lost some students entirely during this time because they have no way of attending online class. But we've learned a lot during this past year, and the future of ABE looks promising, but challenging. Starting next month in St. Paul, we plan to offer instruction in person, online, using a HighFlex model, and through distance learning coaching. Flexibility has always been ABE's middle name, and if we have the right resources, we can be even more equitable, inclusive, and effective through these increased options. But they require technology, outreach, professional development, and high-quality staffing to become and remain a reality. Stable ABE funding would allow us to more confidently plan for a future where we are reaching every ABE student with the tools and instruction that they need. Thank you so much for your time and for considering this proposal.
Thank you, Ms. Rudmanas. Members, questions? Seeing none, when this hearing was posted, the public was provided with instructions on how to sign up to testify during the public portion of the hearing. We received no request from the public to testify. Representative Lee, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members for the consideration.
Thank you very much, Representative Lee. With that, Representative Sandsteed renews her motion to lay House File 1530 over for possible inclusion in a future omnibus bill. Thank you, Representative Lee. Thank you, Representative Sandstead. We'll now move along to House File 1710. Representative Wolgamott, would you like to make a motion to move your bill, House File 1710, to be before the committee to lay it over for possible inclusion in a future omnibus bill?
So moved, Mr. Chair. So moved.
All right, very good. Members of the committee, we're looking to lay this bill over by 6:30. Representative Wolgamott, before you introduce your bill, I understand you have an author's amendment. Would you like to move the A1 author's amendment to be before the committee to put the bill in the shape you desire?
So moved, Mr. Chair. So moved.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. Members, any discussion to the Wolgamott motion on the A1 amendment? Hearing none. Members, all on the Wolgamott motion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Representative Wolgamott, to your bill as amended.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members. I'm here this evening to present House File 1710. And I'm presenting this bill because Minnesota has a long history of supporting regional library systems, which aim to improve library services for the benefit of citizens in all corners of our state. I know myself personally, we've got the Great River Regional Library in St. Cloud, and it's just a wonderful spot to bring my kids to learn, to meet other people in our community. I've had a bunch of town halls in our library. There are just so many benefits to having good, strong libraries all throughout our state. So that's why I'm here to present House File 1710 to increase state funding to the 12 regional public library systems by $2 million each year. The 12 systems currently receive $13.57 million a year, and the 2007 legislature was the last time we increased support for regional library systems. The bill also amends the distribution formula for the 12 regional library systems, a move that is supported by all 12 regional library boards. This formula change will stabilize funding to each region by reducing the volatile equalization factor and increasing the basic aid portion of the formula. As you know, Mr. Chair and members, libraries are a cornerstone of our educational system as they serve lifelong learners. Advances in internet capacity are not making libraries irrelevant. In fact, it's the opposite. Demand for library services is steady and increasing. Citizens of all ages rely on public libraries for lifelong learning and digital literacy. That's why I'm presenting this bill. That's why I'm asking for your support. And with me today are two testifiers who can tell you more about the impact of this legislation. And with your permission, Mr. Chair, I would like to turn over to them to provide their testimony at this time.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. I do have two testifiers on my list. First is Karen Punsack, Executive Director of the Great River Regional Library. Ms. Punsack, welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Dabney and Education Finance Committee members for the time to talk about the impact of regional library basic system support tonight. And thank you, Representative Wolgamott, for authoring House File 1710 and your enthusiastic support of public libraries. My name is Karen Punsack. I'm the Director of Great River Regional Library, one of Minnesota's 12 regional public library systems. We operate 32 libraries in central Minnesota, in cities as large as St. Cloud and as small as Gray Eagle. House File 1710 asks for a $2 million increase in state library aid and a change to the distribution formula. Public libraries helped students and families weather the storm of COVID-19. This formula change would help public libraries weather the future by stabilizing our main source of state funding. This formula is more unstable than other education formulas. Its factors include a base amount, land area, population, and equalization, which includes adjusted net tax capacity. The amounts received range from $5.2 million for metro area MELSA and $328,000 for Northwest Regional Library in Thief River Falls. It is not unusual for a library's distribution amount to vary by 30% or more year over year. Some systems have seen steady declines in funding for more than 5 years. The 12 regions, as Representative Wolgamott said, we're all in support of this. We represent 87 counties, and our governing boards agree this formula is flawed. We need an increase in funding to adjust the formula without taking dollars away from any region. This crucial change will provide regional public libraries a better base of support to serve students and families. Because the formula has fluctuated so much over the past decade, some systems are struggling with reduced funding. Plum Creek Library System, headquartered in Worthington, recently had to make a hard choice: hire a permanent director or replace their delivery van with 500,000 miles. This delivery van is part of our interlibrary loan system, so it has a ripple effect on every Minnesotan using a public library. Plum Creek received $337,000 last year and has seen a reduction in state aid every year since 2013, even with no change to the state allocation. This is just one example of how the formula's instability negatively impacts the services Minnesotans receive. Public libraries provide vital access to technology and broadband. They support students, their families, and lifelong learners. Public libraries demonstrated this throughout this past year. In Piers last spring, when the school was going to distance learning and the library was closing, the librarian reached out to her borrowers to make sure they had internet hotspots for distance learning. The families were so relieved that internet access was not going to be an issue. And one family even had neighboring students connecting through their hotspot too. Great River also partnered with Promise Neighborhood of Central Minnesota to distribute hotspots for their work with families and children. They are located on the southeast side of St. Cloud and offer year-round academic programs for youth and resources for adults. Libraries are a place where all people are welcome and invited. In August, the Great River Board reaffirmed this as part of our core values. We are inclusive and embrace diversity. We are dedicated to finding ways to provide every opportunity to the students and families in our communities. Public libraries provide connection to reliable broadband, access to ebooks, and access to physical books for everyone. These are just a few examples of how public libraries in central Minnesota stepped up during the pandemic. Stories like this happened in 365 communities with a public library across the state. Thank you, Education Finance Committee, for the time to present this bill after bringing it to conference committee 2 years ago. We hope this is the year to get this done. Please support a formula change to ensure a stable source of state library funding for all Minnesotans. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Punsack. Next on my list is Dr. Zuria Anjum, Stearns County Citizen Representative of the Great River Regional Library Board of Trustees. Dr. Anjum, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair Davnie and Education and Finance Committee members for allowing me the time to talk about the impact of the Regional Library Basic Support System. Thank you, Representative Wolgamott, for authoring HF 1710 in support of public libraries. My name is Zuria Anjum. I'm a first-generation immigrant from Pakistan, a psychiatrist by profession, and a mother to 2 teenage kids. I've served on the Great River Regional Library Board since 2016 and have worked with the board on various issues, including diversity and equity. The library recently completed a community survey related to this, and the recommendations will be added to our next strategic plan. Libraries serve as a gateway to knowledge and culture all over the world. Morocco has the world's oldest currently operating library, which was founded back in the 9th century. Since then, civilized nations invest in libraries as social infrastructure for education and uplift of society. Some people argue that in the 21st century, the need for libraries is diminished as there is digital content available for most consumers. This, however, does not take into account numerous issues that face a community, including language barriers, financial constraints, lack of knowledge in accessing resources and utilizing them, just to name a few. A library provides all these essential services to all its community members. According to a Pew Research Center survey done in 2015, 65% of all Americans aged 16 and over used a public library in the past year and said that closing their local branch would have a, quote, major impact on their community, unquote. This sentiment is even higher in marginalized communities with 78% of Hispanics, 72% of women, 70% of parents with minor children, and 70% of those aged 50 or older, stating that closing their library would have a major impact on their community. In the current age, libraries are not just places you visit to get a book. They provide essential resources to learning a new language, expanding vocabulary and knowledge, finding information, and improving computer and technical skills. The impact of disruption to these services was felt by the community clearly in this last year as the pandemic severely limited the ability of the library's services. Great River Regional Library, recognizing the need, spent a significant amount of time and resources coming up with solutions to these barriers. From providing curbside pickups to expanding digital access to books, movies, and music, print to go services, adding hotspots for people to access the internet, modifying reading programs, and adding a hotline to provide information to the community about the library technology hours and issues. These efforts were commendable, but more can be done, but requires a commitment from you to help them continue this efforts. Libraries also serve as a crucial, critical role in the community. They have always been a safe and welcome place for all to meet to pursue their interests, whether that be a book club, kids' story time and reading programs, literacy programs, or research groups. In conclusion, it is for these reasons that I'm asking for your support of HF 1710. This investment in public libraries will repay us with generations of reward and lift all of our communities. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Anjum. 9th century, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Members, questions? Seeing none, when this hearing was posted, the public was provided with instructions on how to sign up to testify during the public portion of this bill hearing. We received no requests from the public to testify. Representative Wolgamott, do you have any brief closing remarks?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for taking the time to hear this bill. I really want to thank my two testifiers today for all the work that they do to make sure that that my kids and kids throughout our community and everyone in Central Minnesota can come to the library to learn, to recreate, to grow. Libraries really are special. And Mr. Chair, members, with all my heart, I'm asking you to support House File 1710. Let's get this in our omnibus bill so that we can fund libraries and fund opportunities for Minnesotans through every corner of our state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott. Thank you, Ms. Punsack and Dr. Anjum. With that, Representative Wolgamott renews his motion to lay over House File 1710 as amended for possible inclusion in a future omnibus bill. Next on our list, members, is House File 1997. Representative, just not doing it.
Agbaje.
I just don't know. I've been able to say it any number of times.
You have. It's the evening, that's all.
It is. Representative Agbaje, my apologies. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
Representative Feist, would you like to make a motion to move House File 1997 before the committee for possible inclusion in a future omnibus bill?
Yes, I would, Mr. Chair. I so move.
Thank you, Representative Feist. Members of the committee and members of the public, we're looking to lay this bill over by 6:45. Representative Agbaje, welcome to the committee, so you may proceed by briefly introducing your bill.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee members. This evening, I am presenting House File 1997, which is an appropriation for the Girls in Action program. So the history of this program is one of success. The program was developed by Dr. Verna Price more than 15 years ago, after she was approached by North High School to help them re-engage their female students who have been getting into fights and other troubling situations. So since then, the program has gone on to empower young women, help them succeed in the classroom, re-engage them in learning, and encourage future career opportunities. The program has since expanded from North High School to schools across the metro area and community-based programs throughout Minnesota. And the program also supports girls in different parts of the world. In order for the program to continue to thrive, we are asking for an additional investment of $1.5 million to ensure that more young women have access to this program. This investment would support community-based programs focused on the needs of Asian, East African, and Latina girls. In addition to providing educational support, the program offers guidance to the families of participants to ensure that the families are also engaged in the program. The program also showcases successful alumni and other women leaders to provide living examples of what is possible for these young women once they graduate from school. The program also has a high rate of attendance, improvement in grades, improvement in graduation rates, and high college acceptance, which is detailed in the handout that was provided. So with me today is an alumna from the program who can speak more to the impact of it and the impact it had in her life. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Agbaje. I understand your original testifier was unable to make it, so Ms. Burnsides is here to fill in, pinch hitting tonight. Thank you for that. Ms. Burnside, please state your name for the record and proceed with your brief testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Asia Burnside, for the record, and I am a graduating senior at the illustrious Virginia State University. And I graduated from the Girls in Action program in 2017 after being a part of the program for 3 years. Girls in Action is a program that definitely changes girls' lives, and that is a complete understatement. I was raised by a single mother. I graduated from Washington Technology in St. Paul, and my mother was amazing, but being a single mother, she couldn't do it all. But having Girls in Action and mentors such as Miss Christina, Miss Kiara, and Dr. Verna, they support you and they push you to be your best self. They gave us exposures to different things by doing our annual tea party, just letting us be able to dress up and really just be the women we are. They really teach you how to cultivate yourself into that woman that you really are, building confidence. One thing that we learned in Girls in Action was VIPL, valuable, important, powerful, and lovable. And those are 4 things that we always said at the end of each of our meetings. These women really support us in anything we want to do. Even when I was on my way to college, when I first began in my freshman year, Girls in Action provided me a scholarship that was much needed, that covered that little bit of balance that I had left to cover my freshman year. These mentors aren't just with you while you're in the program, but they follow you outside of the program. Even still today, I speak to one of my mentors, and she really just guides me through things that I'm struggling with as a woman or things that I just need help with as a person. That's what this program does for you. You're a part of it for life. No matter what, you are a part of Girls in Action for life. And it's really just a support system that myself and my peers really needed, especially my other peers that didn't have mothers to support them, such as mine. Girls in Action, those mentors, they become a part of your village and really change your life. And so if anything that I could say is please support the Girls in Action program. It changes lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And there was some excitement about your college choice amongst the people on the Zoom. Members, any questions regarding House File 1997? Seeing none.
I just have my hand up.
Oh, whoop, sorry, Representative Thompson, I didn't see that. My apologies. Please.
I have a question, but to the last testifier, I don't know if she knows I try not to tell everybody that, but my daughter's a part of this program. And there's things that my daughter can't tell me, or I'm assuming 15-year-old little girls don't like to tell their dad everything. But they do talk to the women involved in this. And so just to have a place to vent, and I'm cool with that. I really appreciate what you bring to the table. And I just want to say thank you personally. I never got a chance to meet you guys, but I just want to say thank you personally for what you've done for my daughter.
A little dad testimonial. Representative Feist, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say how great I think this program is. One of the first times, maybe the first time I ever went to the Capitol in St. Paul was bringing a bunch of girls from Girls in Action to the Capitol to meet with their representatives. It's just such a great program, and I'm just very supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members? Seeing none. Members, when this hearing was posted, the public was provided with instructions on how to sign up to testify during the public portion of this bill hearing. We received no requests from the public to testify. Representative Agbaje, do you have any closing remarks?
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee for hearing this bill. As you heard, it changes lives. So I strongly hope that the committee will consider including this in its final bill. So thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, Representative Feist renews her motion to lay House File 1997 over for possible inclusion in a future omnibus bill. Ms. Burnside, Representative Agbaje, thank you both very much for joining us tonight. Members, we're going to pause from hearing bills at this point for a presentation from the Minnesota Department of Education on Governor Walz's supplemental budget recommendations. Mr. Uni is with us and will be leading the presentation. Mr. Uni?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Adosh Uni. I'm the Director of Government Relations here at the Department of Education. And really thank you to the chair and the committee for giving the department the opportunity to present the governor's supplemental budget for this session. And just to start out, so the governor last week on the 18th released his revised biennial budget, which adds approximately $87 million for E-12 education, bringing the new total education investment to about $745 million. And I'm just going to detail some of the provisions that are either new or were revised. And with me, I have our Director of Finance, Terry Yetter, who will be able to answer any follow-up questions you have that maybe pertain to some of the formula-driven proposals. The first and largest part of the revised or the supplemental budget is a compensatory aid hold harmless. And essentially, this guarantees at least the same average compensatory revenue per student in fiscal year 22 as districts received in fiscal 21. And this mitigates the revenue loss resulting from the underreporting of students eligible for free and reduced price lunch meals in the 2021 school year. This is even with the extension for this reporting that the legislature, and we thank you all, passed in the 7th special session to allow some more time for districts to go out and get these free and reduced price lunch applications extended about 2 or 3 weeks. Even with that, the counts were still overwhelmed by undercounting because of several reasons. And those are undercounting occurred because the federal program allowed meals to be free. The exchange of paper can become more difficult during distance learning, and the undercounting of students experiencing homelessness due to the lack of daily transportation to school where they would normally be identified. This is about $68 million in one-time funding, and it will be paid out on a 90-10 basis. So 90% of it will be paid out in fiscal 22, and 10% will be paid out in fiscal 23. The next provision is a little bit smaller. It's tribal contract aid hold harmless provision, and it adds a one-time declining enrollment to tribal contract aid, which is based on 20.5% of the general education formula allowance. And this would be part of the pandemic enrollment loss proposal, and it's a little bit over $50,000 one-time increase. The next proposal is in the student support personnel for and it'll be an increase for cooperatives and intermediates. It'll be coming in at around $1.7 million for fiscal 22 and 23, and then it'll be $950,000 per year in ongoing funding. And how this works is it'll increase the per student amount for intermediates and for co-ops from the current from the prior $4 to $6 per student that is in their member districts. And this funding serves the state's highest needs students that are served in co-ops and intermediates. There'll be some additional funding to 2 existing programs that were already in the governor's budget. One is additional funding for non-exclusionary discipline training, which dovetails with the policy, non-exclusionary discipline policy that was in the governor's policy bill, and that is also in HF 1081, which will be heard later. This is an increase of $7.5 million in fiscal 22 and 23. That's over the that's going to be $5 million per year ongoing. The prior allocation was $1.25 million per year. And just as a reminder, this is going to be for grants of up to $50,000 per district or charter to create and implement model policies and behavior for discipline. This will now allow for grants of up to 90 districts and charters, and it'll help fund a team at the Department of Education to provide best practices support around non-exclusionary discipline practices. The other item that there will be additional funding for is for out-of-school tutoring opportunities. If you remember, just recently, again, thank you to the chair, Chair Dabney for carrying HF 1064 which is the summer learning package. That includes a proposal of $3.25 million for out-of-school tutoring opportunities. It's $3.25 million. And this proposal would now create ongoing funding for that program of $5 million per year. So that's $10 million over the biennium. And the final addition to the package is a no-cost addition, and that's some revisions to the Advanced Placement and International Baccalaureate STEM grant program, which is about $250,000. And that would allow for some tweaks with a focus on AP computer science courses, as well as changing the funding model so that districts could receive up to $75,000 per year. And the changes really increase the participation and access for districts to create these types of programs. And with that, Mr. Chair, that concludes the overview of the governor's supplemental budget.
Thank you, Mr. Rooney. Members, any questions regarding the governor's supplemental budget proposal? Mr. Rooney, it's a quiet bunch tonight. Thank you very much for that overview. We do appreciate it. Members will now take up House File 1081, and we're looking to lay this bill over by 7:25 p.m. And possibly well before that. You'll remember that we gave this bill an informational hearing last Wednesday, March 17th. We didn't have the bill in our possession at that time because the bill needed to make a stop in the Judiciary Committee. However, we wanted to devote an entire hearing to it nonetheless. The bill was the only bill on our agenda that night, which provided us a robust opportunity to discuss what was in the bill. For those of you following the Education Policy Committee, or jointly serving on this committee and Education Policy, you'll remember that public testimony was taken on the bill the week prior to our hearing on Wednesday, March 10th in Education Policy. As is customary with a policy omnibus that is sent to a parent finance committee, we would be looking to take public testimony on any of the provisions from House File 1081 just after our walkthrough on our final bill. In order for us to get to that final step, however, tonight we need to bring up the bill since it's now in our possession and lay it over for possible inclusion. Members, any questions regarding the process? Seeing none, excellent. Chair Richardson, would you like to make a motion to move House File 1081 before the committee to lay it over for possible inclusion in a future omnibus bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I moved House File 1081 before the committee to lay it over for possible inclusion in a future omnibus bill.
Thank you, Chair Richardson. Chair Richardson, do you have any further comments on your bill that you'd like to share?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a note to members and the public that there were 2 amendments that were adopted in the Judiciary Committee on March 18th. So therefore, the bill that is before you is the second engrossment. Just really quickly, the first amendment clarified that under the unrequested leave of absence process, any data that committee would deal with about individual teachers would be private personnel data. Other committee data would be public by default unless it was protected under another law. And that amendment really mirrored the treatment of individual teacher data in other areas of K through 12 related statutes. And then there was a second amendment that was a technical fix to address an error in drafting. In education policy, there was an amendment that was divided regarding the physical education requirement, and only one line of that divided amendment was adopted. However, in the engrossment, there was an error and the entire amendment was included. So the amendment just brought the bill back in line with the committee's intent. And Mr. Chair, if you would like, Ms. Parra can point out the page and line references in the bill if that's helpful for members or the public.
Thank you, Chair Richardson. Ms. Parra, do you want to provide the page and line references for members?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. And those changes are on page, the credit changes are page 11, lines 12 to 14. And the data practices changes are on page 84, lines 18 to 19. That's that subdivision 4.
Thank you, Ms. Parra. Members, any further questions? Seeing none, as I've said moments ago, it's a quiet bunch tonight, Chair Richardson. Any closing remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just add that there are a few provisions that are still under discussion with groups that are working on improvements, and just thank you for the opportunity to get this move for possible inclusion.
Thank you very much. And with that, Chair Richardson renews her motion to lay House File 1081 over for further consideration and possible inclusion in a future omnibus bill. With that, members, thank you for your time this evening. Staff, as always, thank you very much for your time. We are adjourned. Good night.